The Ethon Interstellar Academy floated in the outer ring of the Cygnus cluster, a structure so vast it had its own gravitational signature. 500 species sent their best minds here. Empires negotiated for enrollment slots. Wars had been postponed, not ended, postponed simply to secure a seat. No human had ever been enrolled. That changed on a Tuesday. Director Kale of the Vorith species stood 6 feet tall with 4 arms, iridescent skin the color of deep ocean bioluminescence, and a mind so precise he could calculate stellar drift in his sleep. He had administered the Ethon Academy for 37 galactic cycles. He had seen prodigies from the Menori Hive Consciousness, savants from the crystalline Veldrith, and combat tacticians from the warborn Keth. He thought he had catalogued every variety of intelligence the galaxy had to offer. Then the transfer file arrived. Aria. Human. Age, 22. Species designation, Homo sapiens. Homeworld, Earth, a Class M planet in a backwater spiral arm. Most navigational charts labeled avoid, pre-warp, unstable geopolitics. Kale read the file 3 times. Her entrance examination scores were a clerical error. They had to be. No individual organism, not a hive, not a collective, not an enhanced synthetic, had scored in the 99th percentile across all 7 disciplines simultaneously. Combat theory, xenobiology, quantum engineering, diplomatic linguistics, stellar cartography, ethical philosophy, and the one subject most students dropped within a semester, integrated crisis response, the discipline of solving problems where every solution creates a new catastrophe. Kale flagged the file. The examiners rescored it manually. The scores went up. He approved the enrollment on the grounds that either she was extraordinary, or the examiners were broken, and either answer needed investigation. Arya arrived on the first transport shuttle with a single bag, a battered paper notebook, an artifact so ancient that 3 faculty members photographed it, and an expression of calm curiosity that Kale would later describe to colleagues as the most unsettling thing I have encountered in 4 decades of education. She was not awed. That was the first problem. Every student who entered Ethon's main atrium experienced what xenopsychologists called the pause, that involuntary moment of stillness when a mind first processed the Academy's scale. Even the Veldrith, who were literally made of crystal and did not have facial expressions, paused. Arya looked up at the atrium's 3-kilometer ceiling, at the artificial nebula they kept suspended there for aesthetic purposes, at the 6 species of students moving through corridors like rivers, and she tilted her head slightly. Then she pulled out her notebook and wrote something down. Kale, watching from the upper observation deck, leaned toward his assistant. What did she write? His assistant, a Menori subnode who could interface with most recording systems, squinted. It says, ceiling, remind me to ask about structural load tolerance. Could be useful. Kale said nothing for a long moment. Put her in advanced track, he said finally. All disciplines. Simultaneously. His assistant turned 4 of its 6 eyes toward him. Director, no student has ever. I know, said Kale. That is the point. The first incident happened in xenobiology, week 2. Professor Senth, a Keth with a reputation built on breaking students before building them back stronger, presented the class with what he called the cascade pathogen problem, a theoretical scenario in which a fast-mutating biological agent was spreading through a multi-species colony ship with no access to external medical supply chains. Students were given 12 minutes to propose a containment solution. The average response time in previous years had been 11 minutes and 40 seconds, and the average solution involved sacrificing one section of the ship. Arya raised her hand at minute 3. Senth stared at her with the particular expression the Keth reserved for things they intended to destroy. Human. You have something? A full solution, she said. And a question. Present the solution first. She did. It involved using the ship's existing water reclamation system as a distribution network for a compound synthesized from combining two otherwise inert components already listed in the ship's standard cargo manifest. It required no sacrifice of personnel or sections. It would work in approximately 40 minutes. The class was silent. "Your question," said Senth, in a tone that had changed registers entirely. "Why," said Arya, "is this scenario framed as requiring a sacrifice? I read through 40 years of this class's recorded solutions. Every one of them loses something. Was that intentional, or did no one ever look at the cargo manifest?" Senth looked at her for a long time. "Both," he said quietly. "It was intentional. No one ever looked at the cargo manifest." "Okay," she said, and wrote something in her notebook. By week 6, Arya had become a problem that the faculty discussed in closed session. Not because she was disruptive. Not because she was arrogant, and this confused them most of all, because every exceptional student they had ever encountered wore their exceptionalism like armor. Arya wore hers like a coat she'd forgotten she had on. She helped other students. Freely. Without being asked. A Veldrith student struggling with integrated crisis response found a handwritten note slipped under their dormitory door containing a 2-page breakdown of the problem they'd been stuck on, written in their native crystalline notation system that Arya had apparently learned in her 3rd week. A Menori subnode that had been failing diplomatic linguistics found Arya eating lunch in the library, and she spent 2 hours explaining human negotiation theory in terms the hive structure could process. "She is studying us," said one faculty member during the closed session. "She is helping us," corrected another. "Those are not mutually exclusive," said a third. Kale sat at the head of the table and said nothing. He had been watching the security recordings. He had noticed something no one else had yet articulated. Arya never looked lost. She looked curious. The distinction was enormous. Lost students moved through problems like they were trapped. Curious students moved through problems like they were exploring. Arya moved through every problem the academy could construct as though the problem was a country she had decided to understand, and she was taking notes for the travelers who would come after her. The defining moment came in week 9, during the integrated crisis response final scenario, an event that was, in truth, not a test at all. It was a recruitment exercise. The galaxy's major powers sent observers. The student who performed best walked out with a job offer from an interstellar body that would define the next century. The scenario, a diplomatic summit between 3 species on the verge of war, had collapsed. The station hosting the summit had suffered simultaneous life support failure and a communications blackout. 3 factions were armed. Resources were limited. Every minute of delay increased the probability of conflict crossing the threshold into open war. Students were given roles. Arya was assigned the role of Junior Logistics Coordinator, deliberately the lowest status position in the scenario, one that traditionally had no decision-making authority. 18 minutes in, with the simulation deteriorating and 2 senior-ranked students arguing over protocol while life support ticked downward, Arya did something no student had done in 40 years of this scenario. She ignored her assigned role entirely. Not out of arrogance. She walked to the 2 arguing students and said, with complete calm, "You're both right about protocol. The protocol is wrong for this situation. Here is what we are actually doing." And she laid out a plan in 90 seconds that used every person in the room, every resource available, and resolved the crisis with 11 minutes to spare. Then she went back to her logistics station and filed paperwork. The observers were very quiet. Kale stood at the back of the observation deck, arms folded across all 4 of them, watching. His assistant appeared at his side. "Director. 4 of the observer delegations have already submitted formal interest queries. For her. How many submitted queries in the last 5 years combined?" Kale asked. 7. Total. Kale nodded slowly. "Do you know what the most dangerous thing about her is?" he said. Her scores? No. He watched Arya below, still filing her logistics report as though she hadn't just rewritten 40 years of this institution's understanding of leadership. The most dangerous thing about her is that she will file that paperwork correctly and completely, and she will do it because she believes the next person in this role deserves a clean record to work from. His assistant processed this. She is thinking about the people who come after her. Humans always have, said Kale quietly. That is why we underestimated them. We assumed intelligence was about solving the problem in front of you. They have always been solving the problem behind the next corner. He looked at the file still open on his datapad. Arya. Human. Age, 22. He closed it. Send a message to the admissions council, he said. The human enrollment quota is no longer 1. Down in the logistics bay, Arya finished her report, capped her pen, and added one final line to her notebook. Week 9, they keep being surprised. Need to figure out why they keep not expecting us. She underlined it twice. Then she went to help a Veldrith student with their homework.